After 6 long years in development, the wait is finally over. Mina the Hollower has graced us with her presence. It's no secret that we've shown a ton of love to Shovel Knight over the years on this channel, but not only does this newest venture for Yacht Club Games live up to the hype, it also shows that there's so much more than a one-trick pony. Not to spoil the surprise, but this game has the juice, man. It's freaking phenomenal. I want to break down exactly why that is, but just like last time, I had to have Alec Faulkner and Sean Velasco from Yacht Club themselves join me to discuss their inspirations, challenges, and mini game development insights along the way. Welcome to another episode of Good Game Design. Let's dive right in. After wrapping up the Shovel Knight saga, Yacht Club Games was ready to create something totally different. Sure, Mina is still a retro-inspired adventure with modern flair, but instead of 2D side-scrolling antics, we've shifted to a top-down open world. Instead of bombastic fantasy, there's a much darker and moodier tone this time around. Even Mina's design was made to stand in stark contrast to Shovel Knight while still being distinctive. But the element that surprised me the most, and clearly the tentpole the game is based around, is the sense of freedom given to the player.
By needing to fulfill the player's fantasy of exploring a big world, of going on an adventure, we found over time we needed to add more and more things that aren't just straight up linear level design Shovel Knight wise, as well as us needing to figure out new ways to make it interesting to backtrack over somewhere that you've already been, something that we tend to hate in any game we play.
And I think as we were playing a lot of these games, we were sometimes getting frustrated at the limitations of them as well. Like, oh, it says you could go anywhere you want, but you actually can't. It's like, there's like some kind of artificial barrier that's like stopping you from getting there. And so we're like, all right, well, we're going to do it, but we're going to like make it real.
And believe it or not, that's precisely what they did. The city of Ossix sits at the center of the island, with branching paths leading to the 6 main areas you can visit, and you can technically complete them in any order you would like. There's no Zelda upgrade gates to be found here. You could go to Queensbury Crypt, Knox's Bayou, Septemberg, or Bone Beach without any prior requirements. And while you need to unlock the train to reach Coltrane Peak and solve the mystery of the mirrors to find the Astral Orrery, those two can be done first with some clever navigation and skillful perseverance. It's clear that they wanted the player to build their own adventure by offering options to break from the intended path. That said, it's not as simple as just picking a route. There are some soft gates, as Alec called them, to help nudge you in the right direction.
Hopefully it doesn't feel like too unguided either. So whether you go to like Crypt or Knox's Bayou at the beginning, those are both like beginnery levels. It's like probably fine. And then like for our next set, right, there of like Septemberg and Bone Beach, there's like mini bosses that you have to complete in order to even get into those areas, in addition to like plenty of difficult enemies like along the way. And by like putting that challenge in front of the player early, it also like creates a goal. Okay, later, I can't wait until I'm ready to go back there.
This is exactly what happened in my playthrough. I started going to the west, but got completely stomped by these pig enemies that deal a ton of damage, so I went the other way first and leveled up a few times before returning. There's also lots of subtle hints if you're stuck and not sure where to go next, like the fountain in the town square that lays out the locations in a suggested order, and the general direction to go to find them. Or the newspapers that release after completing each dungeon with clues of the next goal to tackle, which are all thematically appropriate for the world and only there if the player needs them. Mina the Hollower purposefully doesn't include a minimap of any kind, because it's painstakingly crafted to be intuitive to navigate and fun to explore. The Isle of Tenebris is full of tough encounters though, and will definitely put your skills to the test. Luckily, there are countless options to help Mina stand a chance, from trinkets to equip to sidearms and different weapon types. They've also described Mina as an ecovania, because the economy and currency plays a big role in how you can upgrade your character, and you're heavily rewarded for interacting with the world and finding hidden secrets. Even Mina's core ability of burrowing into the ground fundamentally changes how you can approach difficult fights.
Burrowing came about as a means of trying to create some sort of dodge that like used platforming as a component of it, but wasn't just like a straightforward dodge roll, and had a vulnerability that forces you to like commit to it as an action.
You can jump like above the ground. What if you could jump like under the ground? to give you like more like layers of verticality. When it's top down, you don't have a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can do, and so adding that was just like, I mean, this is a whole other dimension.
The further Mina starts drifting from her like shadow position, the harder it can kind of be at a glance to just tell like, where am I in 3D space? And so while instinct may have been like, yeah, we make platformers, make that character jump super duper high, it'll be great, the perspective of the genre kind of forced a different approach.
It can't be overstated how cool burrowing feels, not just for combat, but platforming as well. You move faster underground and can jump over 2 tiles of a pit instead of just 1 if you're exiting a burrow. But even digging under an enemy to get behind them or avoid damage makes the whole experience feel like true 3D even in a simple 2D game. Building the world from that perspective, however, did present a lot of challenges in terms of readability for the player. It takes a short bit to get used to how certain paths may be 2 or 3 layers above your current position, and yet look like it's flat on the ground. But Yacht Club said they stood on the shoulders of the giants who came before when it came to building conveyance under strict limitations.
Some things that they do is they make the floor on the lower level a different color than the floor on the upper level. All the visuals of the collision are like all the same. So like all the jump down tiles and like all the solid tiles and all the pits, they all share the same visual language throughout every single area, so you know that those are the same.
And this is true. Once you see a ledge in one area, you'll recognize the same slope shapes and design signifiers throughout the rest of the game. It may feel like learning a new language at first, but once you become fluent, it starts to flow without any hangups. Of course, it helps that Yacht Club have always been masters of teaching without telling. There are dozens of new mechanics introduced throughout Mina the Hollower, and Alec noted that it always helps to give each concept room to breathe and clarity in its introduction. I still remember a handful of screens that made me feel incredibly smart for figuring out how a certain element worked, but in reality I just fell right into the trap they set for me to learn about it in the first place. The room that teaches you about the burrow jump, for example, requires you to perform it properly to proceed. There's no NPC or guide telling you what to do, but the control scheme is simple enough that you can work it out with enough experimentation, and the layout of the objects are placed in such a way to make it naturally intuitive. Even so, this design style can be at odds when it comes to the open world structure they laid in the game's foundations.
You can go anywhere, which means that we can't put a thing in front of you to teach you, which was like, well, now what? So it had to be tutorialized, like, no matter which direction you went.
When a mechanic needs to be understood before starting a new area, they do try to funnel you to a specific room to learn it. But for the most part, this means that each location needed to have distinct themes and elements that aren't used in other places, which in turn gave each zone its own identity to set it apart. For the most complex concepts, however, they also introduced an in-game manual for players to peruse at their leisure, which helped when there wasn't a seamless way to learn about something in the environment. And I used this on more than one occasion when I felt like I didn't fully understand how an item worked or what it could be best used for. What has always stood out to me is Yacht Club's unwavering commitment to a particular era and art style, in this case the Game Boy Color specifically, and using those self-imposed limitations to breed some of the most creative and well-polished experiences I've ever played. While they may use the occasional modern tool to make an area look especially pretty to look at, they take extra care to make sure nothing looks anachronistic to the time period. So essentially, it looks like how you remember the system being as a kid, with just enough rose-tinted glasses to elevate the style to today's heights. And there's a specific reason why they're so inspired by the games of yore and stick to their retro roots.
We go back to and we reference things of that era because there's like gold there that's like, you know, yet to be mined when you place insane constraints on what you can and can't do. It forces you to be really creative and to scrap what is unnecessary.
Zelda 2 was specifically mentioned as an influence in how you level up in Mina. Having to make an immediate decision, potentially mid-combat that could have drastic consequences, is really engaging on a mechanical and emotional level. It's still a cool idea today, and making those diamonds in the rough work in a modern context can be especially rewarding. The result is a game that pays homage to the classics, is smartly designed and densely packed with content, has the atmosphere of Bloodborne but the wit of Link's Awakening, and all the while somehow feels like the most freedom given to the player I've ever seen. I don't think there's really anything else quite like it. There's this gap to the right of Radiant Manor that's way too huge to cross on your own. but over the course of the game, slowly finding the right combination of trinkets and sidearms to finally be able to cross it is one of the most gratifying moments I had with Mina because I figured it out without any guidance. They laid out the puzzle pieces, over 60 trinkets and 14 sidearms to be exact, but I just happened to put them together in one of the right ways to complete the challenge.
I'd hope that's a highlight for a lot of players, not because you realize, oh my gosh, that's so cool, I must find something that allows me to cross. I think the cool part is when you realize, oh wait, there's probably 100 ways to cross this 9-tile gap, and there's like not necessarily a right or a wrong one.
You essentially can play Mina the Hollower however you want to play it. And that's without mentioning the numerous New Game Plus modes that switch up a replay, from reducing the save points and harder enemy variants to randomizing the item locations, and the near endless modifiers you can add to tweak the difficulty or adjust your playstyle however you see fit. It's like being given the keys to a theme park that you can tailor-make to fit your style. It truly feels like such a complete package, and is an absolute must-play for anyone and everyone who loves video games. I want to give a huge thanks to Yacht Club Games for chatting with me about their design process, and wish them all the success they deserve with a project of this caliber. If you want to check out the full interview with Sean and Alec, I'll be sure to link it in the description below. Thanks for watching another episode of Good Game Design. I'll see you next time. Stay frosty, my friends.